meeting of June 6, 2022. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16, 2021 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extensions of this March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 30A, Section 20, until July 15, 2022, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410. Conference ID 163-677-971#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Now I'll turn the meeting over to Chairman Beckley.
Thank you, Judy. It shall be the policy of this board to conduct its meetings under the open meetings law so as to encourage public participation whenever time permits and as part of agenda item discussions. Let's move on to tonight's agenda. The first item is a real estate inspection variance regarding sewer connection for 86 Bayview Street. Attorney James Norcross is representing the proposed buyer. Mr. Norcross, are you on the call?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I am on the call.
Good afternoon. Can you please introduce this request?
Sure. My client, Timothy Pytel, has an agreement to buy the property at 86 Bayview Street. The property, if not now, very shortly will be eligible to connect to town sewer. He's scheduled to close next week. So we were asking for a waiver of the requirement to have a Title V system installed. The buyer's plan is to connect to town sewer as soon as he can. After the closing, he has already engaged with Robert Auer, who I believe is working on trying to get someone to do the engineering. So, things are a bit slow now since everyone's so busy, but they do plan to try and get the connection done as soon as they can. Per Judy's request, we did have the current cesspool, which services the property, inspected by Rick Judd at Moran Engineering, and he found that it was in very good condition. That would be an explanation of why we are here this afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So has the house in question been occupied recently?
I don't know, not often. It's a seasonal residence for the most part. The seller, I believe, does come and go, but I'm not certain how frequently she's been in town.
Okay. So we know that it is a cesspool, not a Title V, Judy, but we also know by virtue of this inspection that there's no evidence of active failure. Is that true?
Correct. The cesspools all looked like they were in sound shape and either were dry or had very little effluent in them. So
Okay.
there's an overflow cesspool. So the one cesspool is almost acting as a septic tank, and then when that fills up, it would overflow to the second one.
So
So
the
it look-
seepage into the ground is coming from the overflow cesspool?
Correct.
Okay. Board of Health member questions? Button.
I believe that all cesspools seep into the ground, but if the seepage in the first one is delayed, then it overflows into the second one.
Right. And I think you can probably conclude that the fact that there is an overflow cesspool suggests that the first pool was not keeping up with the flow. Is that
Right.
safe, Judy, to
Usually
assume?
that's why they put in a second one.
Yeah.
At some point, they would add, they don't do it anymore, but they would add a second cesspool when the first one was starting to not leach as efficiently or fill up,
Okay.
so.
So the question then,
Yeah, I had one question. So when is the property supposed to transfer or convey?
June.
June?
Yeah, on June 15th.
Okay, thank you.
So the question then in my mind is, if this is approved for 1 year, up to 1 year, as a variance request, what will happen if this cesspool begins to fail before they've made connection?
I mean, if that happened, they could put in a septic tank, which would buy them some more time, and they could pump. But I think they could possibly get their contractor to, do an emergency for them, speed them up.
Right.
Oftentimes, the contractors will do that if they know somebody is in an emergency situation, to get them connected.
All right.
So,
So in terms of the conditions we're going to put on this, does it make sense to put any kind of condition relative to the fact that this isn't an old cesspool, and if in fact it shows evidence of failure prior to connection to the town sewer, that the owner would be obligated to pump as necessary to
Yes.
prevent any surface discharge of effluent? That makes
yes,
sense?
that would be a good condition to put on that.
Yeah, my understanding is the normal approach would be to pump both cesspools and then stir up the bottom and rough up the sand, and then you'll get another period of time out of those cesspools, and that should be sufficient to get to the point where they can get the.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think putting a septic tank in would be
If they
something that
needed to, they
anybody would
could,
want to
but you're
do.
right, they can pump out and clean the cesspools, so.
Do we know how much solids are in the cesspools now? I mean,
I was just looking for that. It didn't seem like there was very much at all. One primary, one overflow. Six feet plus a minor interior sidewall stain marks were observed. So it looks like they were empty, but there were some sidewall staining on the pits. No observed signs of backup, breakout, or hydraulic failure within or above the overflow cesspool at the time of the inspection. So it looked like it has been working as it should be.
okay. Ron?
Judy, do we know when the possibility of the sewer is going to be ready up there?
It's ready.
It's,
So
oh,
they
it's
can
ready
move.
right now.
They
so-
can move forward, and they've been advised that they don't have to wait for an order letter from us to connect at this
Okay,
point.
but we're going to be doing that in any event, correct?
We will be, yes. And now that we got our sewer connection regs updated, I think that's the plan for this summer, to start sending out letters. And Bob will be putting together those lists to bring to the board to approve the order letters to be sent.
Okay, but the owner will understand that they can proceed full
Yes, and we'll make
speed
that,
as of right now
Right.
to get what they need to get done to proceed with the,
Jamie, the owners do understand that, correct?
I will tell them that they can, and as I mentioned, they have already put a deposit down with Robert Hour to get started on his end. So it's really just the engineering and I think our schedule, and they'll get the work done, so
yeah, but make
they're
sure,
certainly gonna move forward.
yeah, make sure they don't have to wait around for a town letter before they
Yep,
engage,
I'll make,
before they engage an engineer. Okay,
sure, I will make sure they're aware of that.
okay. Any other questions or comments? Carol?
Is it going to be a year-round or just a seasonal home
I don't know.
for the first year,
You mean for this upcoming?
for this upcoming year?
Did you hear that question, Jamie?
I did, Mr. Chairman, I believe it's gonna be seasonal.
For the new owners, only going to be there seasonally? Okay.
Correct.
The document does say the depth of the solids layer is 6 inches plus or minus.
Okay.
So there's not much in there.
Not much in there. All right. Any other questions or comments by board members? Can I get a motion to accept with that additional condition that was mentioned earlier?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
With the condition that
With
the
the
system be
conditions.
pumped out and cleaned should the system fail before they're
If-
connected.
Right, exactly right. Can I get a second? Second from Ed. Any further comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion as made and seconded, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
John, could I recommend that we jump to item number 4, since we have Stuart Smith, our harbor master, on the call, and we won't have to have him wait
Absolutely,
too much longer?
absolutely. Let's move up to agenda item 4, a discussion and a review of the Lighthouse Beach swimming area. Judy, you want to frame this for us?
Sure. There's Stuart. So the board, a few of us went out with a member of the Parks and Rec and some of the recreational staff on Friday and observed the conditions at Lighthouse Beach. Historically, or at least for the last 7 or 8 years, the Board of Health has restricted the swimming area at the beach to basically in front of the stairs, and then as you move, what's that, north or south? As you move north.
South.
As you move south, it was no swimming allowed, and it posted no swimming. The conditions there used to be much, much harsher than they are now, steep drop-offs and really strong currents. They have become a lot less dangerous. It's much flatter out there, especially at low tide, as we saw when we were there. So the question is, should the board allow swimming at your own risk along the entire length of the beach? And I think maybe Stuart can explain the conditions out there better than I can. So that's what we're
Please,
talking about.
please do, Stuart.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I was talking with Judy and some other folks about the conditions at Lighthouse Beach, and I think the Board of Health might recall a discussion we had some years ago, maybe three or so years ago, about how the conditions had improved in the area of Andrew Harding's Lane, and a discussion entailed, whether or not we still needed a no swimming area there, seeing as though most people were swimming in that area at the time and continue to, and because the conditions had improved. So the Board of Health lifted that restriction at Andrew Harding's Lane, and I just thought it was time that we had a similar discussion for Lighthouse Beach. As Judy alluded to, that was posted no swimming as you moved in a southerly direction. I don't know, it's probably, a couple hundred yards from the parking lot. From there, further to the south, was no swimming. Like Andrew Harding's Lane, Lighthouse Beach, water conditions have improved dramatically. Not to say any water area is safe, but it certainly is a lot safer than it used to be. We don't have those steep drop-offs, strong currents, and breaking surf that we did a number of years ago. The dominant inlet, if you will, the north inlet has become that dominant inlet, and the south inlet, although used, has become capturing less of the water coming out of Pleasant Bay. So that's large reason why the conditions have improved, in addition to the south inlet moving towards Monomoy in a southerly direction. So I just thought it was time for that discussion. It's in the purview of really the board to decide whether or not those dangerous conditions still prevail, and whether or not you want to keep the no swimming area or not.
Thank you. Questions from board members for Stuart?
So Andrews Harding Beach is now swim at your own risk?
Yes, it is.
And so, the question is, do we make the rest of Lighthouse Beach swim at your own risk? Is that something that you would, based on what you know, you would agree with?
Well, I think that, I think that the conditions are just so dramatically different from why we instituted the no swimming area. I thought it was, I think the question is, do the conditions exist that it warrants the Board of Health to say there's no swimming? And from what I can see, those conditions don't exist anymore. But it ultimately comes down to the decision of the Board of Health.
Ron?
Stu, do you still have the boat going back and forth out there? I remember at one point you did, when we had that.
A number of years ago, we did. We don't have a boat dedicated to Lighthouse Beach. On weekends, we have a small boat that does transverse that area in addition to the regular patrol boat. On weekends predominantly.
Okay, thank you.
They do still have a beach patrol on an ATV that goes up and down the beach, and that will continue in some capacity this summer, and then will be reviewed, I guess, in the future.
So Judy, it's within the realm of authority for this board to decide and pass a motion one way or the other if we want to effect a change. This is something that the Recreation Board seemed to be supportive of, true?
Yeah, the Parks and Rec Commission are supportive of it, and some discussions I'd had with Dr. Bob also was somewhat supportive of it, I think. He knew that we were going to have this discussion. The Board of Health is under the beach regulations from the state. It comes under our jurisdiction to designate unsafe swimming areas, which is why we designated this so many years ago, because of the sharp currents and the steep drop-offs. Another would be bacterial quality, but we've never had those issues there. So that's why we did this to begin with, because we felt it was an unsafe swimming area. And in fact, several people had drowned out south on the point there, which is kind of gone now. Those bars and strong currents aren't there anymore.
Okay.
So it is under your jurisdiction.
Dick?
Okay, so what I would like to propose is that the Board of Health designate the whole beach from Andrew Harding's down to the south, beyond Lighthouse, as an area where swimming is allowed at your own risk, and not to get into the nuances of saying that there's a beach patrol covering a quarter of a mile of that during certain hours of the day.
It's uniform.
Make the whole thing swim at your own risk, and that would basically make it clear.
Dick can make a motion, true?
No.
Or he can't?
No.
He's suggesting that's what we do.
I'm just suggesting,
Okay. Well, it seems logical to me, knowing what we know
And
now.
the Parks and Rec Commission also did say that they are working on their signage. There's a lot of different signs there. It's
Gotcha.
overwhelming, and they're going to condense the signs. Oops, sorry about that.
Okay.
So that there'll be more uniform signage, and people will be clear that there's no lifeguards on duty and that you swim at your own risk.
Have they set a date that will officially be open?
I think it's June 24th is what rings a bell with me.
So that's when the people will be there, the guards will be there, or
Do you know
patrol
when the
people.
beach patrol starts, Stuart?
You're right, it's around the 24th they start up.
All right, can I get a motion then from a board member to propose that the signage reflect what Dick just said? The signage reflect that from Andrew Harding's beach to the south be classified as swim at your own risk.
Yeah, this is Noble. I'll make a motion that the Lighthouse Beach from Andrew Harding's Lane down to the point is designated as swim at your own risk.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Ron. All right. Anybody wish to comment on this from the public before we vote? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion as made, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, the motion carries. Stuart, thank you very much for your time and your counsel.
Great, thank you for bringing me up on the agenda early. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks,
you're
Stuart.
welcome. All right, now let's continue. Back to item number 2, a follow-up review and discussion regarding Energy and Climate Action Committee questions. Judy included in with our packets an initial draft of the questions that were posed. Any,
Well, as you recall, they presented us with these questions right before the last meeting, and it didn't really give us time to, to answer them, to be able to absorb what they were asking. So what Bob had suggested was that we prepare something and relook at this today. So I did this, I put this together the other day, and Bob had a quick look at it, basically kind of trying to answer each one of their questions. I don't know if you want to go through them individually, or if you had anything to add. We have not, after the board looked at them, and if we made any changes, then we'll send them to the committee, the ECAC committee.
well, I read them, they seemed pretty straightforward, and I thought you did a fine job
I
responding
did
to them.
post these on, with the agenda, so that the public could see them as well.
Okay. I would say let's forward your answers to the woman who came to visit us and ask her to review and comment our responses.
I'm
Anybody
fine with
else?
that,
That makes sense?
as long as you didn't have any
So we would
questions.
post these in the minutes of this meeting. And these would be submitted to her. I noticed there was no response to the question about having a joint meeting with the ECAC committee. The very last thing is possibly it's time for a joint meeting.
Yes.
I don't know if that's really appropriate at this time.
No.
I think,
Maybe we would ask her to clarify.
I did give you an update to this, and maybe this one isn't the updated one, but Bob did state that, the Conservation Commission and the Board of Health have their own separate regulatory, ways to deal with
Right.
these things, so it's not, I mean, we could meet with them and discuss things, but I'm not sure how much, they have their regulations, the wetlands resource regulations, and we have ours to kind of look at the issue from different perspectives. So, I'm not sure that a gray zone really does exist. We just have different regulations that we enforce. So, that's something, we can talk to this commission about more, if that's what they'd like, but.
Okay. Yes, Ron?
Judy, did they ask the select board to look at this and give answers to some of their questions?
I'm sorry?
Did the select board look at this, or do they get questions asked of them also?
Yes, I believe this committee is, their charge is to put this type of information together and then present it to the select
Okay.
board at some
You know,
point.
I'm sure the select board should also have some input into it.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we don't have to vote on that, do we? It's just
I don't think so.
ask Judy to,
Yeah, and if you have any comments that you want to add to it, I certainly can amend this at any time.
okay. All right, item number 3. Pardon me?
I thought I sent you one. We can get the right one.
On what we're,
I did shoot.
Yeah.
I sent them an updated one.
you can ask Judy that, I guess.
Judy, is the representative of the ECAC here to say something, or?
No, No.
No, okay, perfect.
Okay. All right, let's move the agenda to item number 3, which is an update and a discussion regarding John McGrath at 32 Mill Hill Road.
So, Dr. Bob is on vacation, so he's not here to give us a formal update, but as you know, I'm sure that the cleanup did occur 2 weeks ago. Guardrails have been put up, so everything from the property line to the road, into the roadway has been removed, except for the RV, which has been tucked in at the end of the guardrail. And there's also 2 trailers there that are still full of materials. So the signage has not been put up yet as of today. I'm not sure. I'll need to
Signage
get-
about no
The
parking.
no parking signage, yes. So we will have to get an update from DPW to see when those are going up. We were hoping they were going up as part of this, and that was the plan. So I can check into that this week.
And we don't know what the plan is for the disposition of the Winnebago.
We don't. He, during the cleanup, he swore that he was going to put plates on it and drive it away, but I doubt that's going to happen.
That
because-
was the representation by the owner of the property.
Yes, but that did not happen, which is no surprise.
And do we know clearly what the future status of those trailers will be? Are they in a location where they could stay, or are they in a location where they are encroaching into the roadway?
I believe they're into the roadway, the way I see it.
Right.
We'd have to determine that, and, if it is considered a no parking area, then those will have to go. So that would become a police matter, I believe.
Because there's no guardrail at that end of the property where they sit. So it's a little bit hard to
Right.
finesse that. Carol, did you want to say something?
Do the trailers have license plates on them? Are they registered?
I
Or are they unregistered vehicles?
This came up before. I thought they said they did have plates, or,
think one of them did.
Some
The
were-
other
the
one,
trailers, some were
supposedly
and
he
some
had
weren't.
plates for it, but it's unclear at this point.
But I have a question. So the area at the very end of the guardrail, at the end of the property, the farthest in, the guardrail stops, and then there was this question of a right-of-way, and there was a question of whether the guardrail would ever extend to the end of the property line or whether it had to stop short because of that right-of-way. The right-of-way, it looks like, is where he has the RV and trailers parked now. Will that be an no parking zone in the future, something the police can patrol and get those things out of the roadway, even if it's a right-of-way?
Yeah, the right-of-way, that would be a civil issue for all the materials, not just in the roadway, but going down towards the lake. I don't believe anybody can be parked on the roadway. They're going to be putting signs up. I don't know how long, I think it's going to be the whole length of that property, so.
Has it been determined that that is a right-of-way and that guardrail is going to stop permanently and not cross that area at the end?
I'm not sure the answer to that.
Bob would know that.
I
Yeah.
heard that there was a right-of-way, thereby assuring other area residents access to that pond.
It would make sense as to what, and that would be why they
Because
stopped
we
where
have
they
those
did.
all over Chatham. We
Right.
have road, right-of-ways. And it's,
That makes sense as to why they stopped where they did, so
Right, but regardless,
regardless.
if the no parking signs go up, it's a no parking area.
Right.
Those things are in violation, and fines can be issued,
right.
and orders can be placed, and if nothing is done, then again, it's going to be up to us to hire somebody to tow that stuff away, because otherwise it'll just stay there
Right.
forever.
Well, I think
Well,
I think the police can.
Yeah, but they haven't. I
have it
mean, it
towed.
would, there's always we always hear a reason why they can't do it. They don't have enough material, they don't have the right kind of equipment, they don't, but at some point,
It hasn't been done up to this point because it wasn't a no parking zone.
Right.
well,
Now
yeah,
it's-
but we declared that whole area a nuisance, and the whole area was supposed to be cleared up, regardless of whether it's a no parking zone, and it didn't happen.
Well,
And,
that's
you
why
know,
we're
the
here
Public
today.
Works Department say they don't have the right kind of device to remove the RV. At one point, we were told, I'm sure at this meeting, we were told that that company that was hired was going to remove those trailers and the RV, and they didn't. You know, a contract was signed to clear that area up, and they didn't do it.
I'm not sure they were ever charged with moving the trailers,
Well,
but I
if
could
they
be
weren't, they
wrong.
should have been, I believe.
Yeah.
But I would say that the questions, and we may have to wait for Bob Duncanson, is the no parking area going to continue across that right-of-way area? And then if it's a no parking area, as Dick said, my understanding is, and we had asked the question before, that it'll be a police matter if there's parking in a no parking area. It won't
Yes.
come back to us, but the police, just like if it's on Barcliff Road or Stage Harbor, and if somebody's parking and no parking, that's a police issue, and they would take care of it, you know, regularly. And that, we
So
haven't got to that point yet, but that's my understanding of what would happen.
And if it is a right-of-way, you can't park in it.
Okay.
I mean, it's like leaving your car in front of a town road, you know, it's a right-of-way.
Presumably, but I
You can't
think-
leave a vehicle obstructing a right-of-way.
Yeah, presumably, but I think Bob would have to sort of get back to us about definitively what it is exactly, and then just pin down the fact that it's going to be a police matter for when there's parking, or dumping, I suppose, in the no parking area, which we think it should be, but I think Bob will have to get information and get back to us.
It's strategically important to see where those no parking signs are posted into the ground, because that clearly delineates areas where it would be illegal to leave anything there. The other question that will obviously come to this board in the near future is what next? And how do we approach the rest of the cleanup of the parcel in question? And what facts do we need to have a clear understanding of before we tackle that? And I think we all need to get a refreshed copy of the Massachusetts general laws that discuss nuisances and the role of public health boards in regard to them, so we can have a very, very clear sense of what our charge is moving
Right.
forward.
And I also think that once we also need to walk the property, you know, with the fire and police for, you know, public safety issues as well as public health issues, and determine, you know, what needs to go, what we see are the major concerns there. There are concerns, you know, with access to the house for the fire safety people, et cetera. So these are all things that are going to need to be looked at.
Correct. Ron?
Because I think it's important that we really see what's up there. I mean, have you ever walked his property?
I did a few years ago when we first started this process.
Because,
A
I mean,
bit.
there's rubbish and there's rubbish.
Yeah, yeah.
Dick?
I strongly recommend that we not become amateur attorneys and try to interpret the Massachusetts code, that we get the town council to come to us or send us a review of the code and how specifically it affects a private nuisance, a public nuisance, what committees are responsible, what does the building inspector have to do, where does the Board of Health come in under Massachusetts law? If we start reading Massachusetts civil code and all the amendments, and it'll just become a morass. And I think that if we have a town council, this is something that he could be very helpful.
The town council has weighed in on this, and we can review that. You know, we can provide you with his opinions on these matters again. And if he
Yeah,
needs to,
and-
we can have him again
Could
come
you-
to our meeting.
Judy, you're going to send us all another copy of this code. If you find a letter or letters from town council that comments on this site that you think would help us refocus on our authority, I think that would be useful. And then we have to then come up with an overarching idea of what's gonna determine whether we believe the debris on the property should be entirely cleaned up, should be half cleaned up, should be cleaned up within 50 feet of the crest of the hill. I mean, we have to have an overarching strategy to help guide us. And then coupled with the site walkover, that will give us more details about the nature of what's down the hill.
If the bottom line is that a nuisance is a condition on a property that effectively diminishes the value of other properties in the neighborhood, and if the Board of Health is responsible for mitigating nuisances, then it's clear that we need to go and look at it and say, okay, what on this property is so unsightly from the road that people can see driving by, that it is degrading the value of the next door neighbor who's trying to rent his house. So that's one issue. The second issue is there evidence of vermin, runaway ferrets, other things that are clearly a health hazard. And then that would clearly be a
And then add to that the fire code concerns about combustible debris.
Yeah, if he has refrigerators in his front yard that you can't see from the road, then, is that a nuisance? It is blight, under the definition of blight, having, trash in your front yard, but I don't know what our role is in managing blight.
Yeah, but I agree with Dick. I think before we decide or have the inspection, that we review the state law nuisance, perhaps with the attorney, so we can ask him questions about what we can and can't do, so when we go in for the inspection, we know what we're headed for. Because whatever you do is going to set a precedent. We have to be consistent and follow the law and be able to defend what we're doing. So I'd suggest that maybe we have the attorney come here and we're able to review the statute and then ask him all the questions in advance, so when we make that inspection, we know what we're doing. I think that's what Dick was talking about as well.
I think to protect the board, we need to get a legal opinion of what we can do up there. Because I don't know if junk, if it's not a health hazard, does it really come under the Board of Health or not? I always assumed it didn't, if it was metal or something like that. A refrigerator, the door has to be off and things like that. This was something that came up when I was on the Board of Health in the town before we moved down here.
Right.
We had
Well-
not a problem like this, but we had a problem.
We're kind of touching on this. Certainly, a condition that we discover on a private property that constitutes a public health nuisance is clearly within our purview, and that would then tie in with something like a rodent infestation, mosquito breeding.
That is all already existing.
But we don't, Ed, you got to press your button.
Microphone.
I'm not sure we've documented some of we have concern that they might be present, but that still will help be decided by the site visit. But I can read right here this document that Judy gave me, and I'll just read you the one sentence. Under a particular state law, local boards of health have broad discretion in determining what set of conditions or circumstances constitute a nuisance. Generally, a nuisance is defined as a condition when a property owner permits or maintains a condition or activity on his property which causes a substantial and unreasonable interference with the use and enjoyment of the property of another, or which may, in the board's opinion, be injurious to the public health. So that's an important phrase there about causing a substantial and unreasonable interference with the use and enjoyment of the property of another.
It's almost as if the statute empowers the Board of Health to deal with the mental health of the neighbors rather than the physical health. I mean, it doesn't have to be a rodent, it doesn't have to be, septic overflow. If the neighbors are very upset and despondent because of the appearance of their neighbor's property, then it becomes a Board of Health issue, which I find kind of amazing, but that's the way the statute is written.
Right. All right, well, I think there'll be plenty of future meetings to further discuss what we're going to do. We have to wait for Dr. Duncanson to get back.
I can just quickly going through the file, which Diane has kept very organized, and the signs were voted by the traffic committee, approved to be from, on Mill Hill Road, from Meeting House Road to Dusty Miller. So that entire length of road will be no parking.
Okay,
So that means that those trailers will have to go, and the RV, because they're in a no parking zone.
okay.
Is the guardrail gonna go from Dusty Miller to
I don't,
the same?
I think what they've done so far is all that's gonna be for the guardrail.
And then, Judy, I think the one other big issue is if it's no parking and cars and trailers appear there, or even junk, we nail down that it is a police department issue to enforce that. Doesn't come back to the board for every little infraction.
Right, that's
It's
my
the police
understanding,
department.
right.
But
No parking is a police
I think we just
matter.
need to get input back from the police department that that's their understanding and there aren't any qualifications or
I think the
whatever.
guardrails were put up in front of the person's property in order to, keep people and him from putting more stuff there.
Right,
See if it works, but.
all right.
So, but we will continue this, and in the meantime, I will put together the documents from town council that we've received before. And then if, we can ask him to come in and say, all right, we've done phase 1, phase 2, how do we proceed? So,
Okay,
okay,
good?
good.
All right. Are you going to give the update on item 5, Judy, on COVID-19?
Yeah, sure, I put together some stuff. I don't have any charts, but I was going to just give you a quick update. Our May total for cases was 61, which was about where we were for April. I think April was 59. To date, for June, we have now 9 cases. This week, our incidence rate has dropped from 68.8 to 27, which is good news. And our positivity rate is also dropped from 9.3 to 7.1. So we're in a dropping pattern, a downward pattern, which is good. The overall state positivity rate during the same period was 7.7, so we're slightly below the state average. And Bob did indicate, when I was just talking with him, that the sewerage numbers in Provincetown and Boston are starting to show dropping numbers as well, which is an even better sign that we're going hopefully in the right direction. I just also wanted to let you guys know and the public know that we're going to be getting 1,000 test kits, individual test kits from the state. So they will be available. We do have some in stock now. If anybody wants test kits, we have them at the health department, and they can come in and pick them up. We give them out, 1 per person. There's 2 tests per kit. So as I said, we're going to be getting more in the next week or so, hopefully. And I don't know if I've mentioned this in the past, but there is a website available for anybody who has mild to moderate COVID. It's where they can go on this telehealth site and get a prescription for Paxlovid if they can't get it from their doctor directly or they don't have health insurance. And I did post that on the Health Division's website. It's a link that you go to, and they can get this prescription. And I believe they can even have the Paxlovid shipped right directly to their house.
Now, is that time-sensitive in terms of your onset of symptoms?
Well, it works most effectively if you start to take it within, I think, 72 hours
Of
of
onset?
positive test or onset of symptoms.
Yeah,
Okay.
And the longer you wait, the less effective it becomes.
that's what I've heard, yep. And also,
But if you go to if you call your private medical home, they should have access to it or a way to give you a prescription for it.
They give you a prescription and you pick it up at CVS.
Okay.
CVS should have.
Okay, so there's a way to get it fast.
Right, yeah,
if you
getting
need
it shipped by mail is probably not optimal if you
Gotcha.
can just go down to CVS and pick up a prescription.
Okay.
yeah, I think they even said they would like overnight it to people, so.
All right.
that-
The other
that
thing
would be
about the
helpful.
testing is I just got I think Medicare or Medicaid or some, sent me an email yesterday that everybody can get 4 more tests free from the federal government. So, we're going to have 8 more tests coming within the next week or so. So we'll have a total of about 30 tests in our closet, none of which we've
We'll
used.
send people your way.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's
And
a
but
good,
they
there's,
expire. Some of them, you get them and they have an expiration date that's only about 3 weeks
Oh, gosh,
from when you get them.
I did not know
So,
that.
if I look at all the ones in my closet, most of them, half of them are expired. Now, if it's like other medications, they probably still work fine after they've expired.
the
But,
CDC has extended the expiration dates on many of the different test kits for out to 6 months, so, I mean, we can look that up if anybody has questions about that.
Okay.
And so hopefully the ones they send us aren't going to expire immediately. But there's a huge availability of them, so if anybody needs them, we're going to have
Well,
them.
I'm very happy to hear that the Northeast, the COVID incidence, even regionally.
Finally starting to drop.
And that was on the CDC email I got, that's the big picture, and we seem to be feeling that right here in our
Mm-hmm.
own town, in our own state. So that's all good news.
Okay,
Any
but on the
questions?
cruise ships, even though they're restricting the cruise ships to only fully vaccinated people, they're still having COVID problems on the cruise ships.
Really?
So it isn't over.
Right.
And we may be getting another surge in the fall, so
All right.
people would like it.
well,
to
it's
go.
important to urge people that are eligible to go get that booster, if they haven't already, their second booster. Because just looking at the numbers of cases that are hospitalized, if you have the booster, you're much less likely to be hospitalized or be seriously ill, so it's important.
All right, that is the end of the agenda. I did get a request from Carol. This is not on the agenda, but a request from Carol to ask about the airport fisherman area cleanup. Are we in a position to update?
I
The board
don't have
members
an
on that?
update on that. I'm sorry, I don't really know what the status of that is at the moment.
There was also supposed to be, after the cleanup, there was going to be a fence put there at the end of the access road. Okay, so that will be determined in an upcoming meeting then.
Yep. I'll talk to Bob. I think he'll be back for the next meeting, so we can get
Okay.
some information on that.
All right. We do have one set of minutes we need to accept for May 16th, 2022. Any comments or edits or questions about the draft minutes we got for May 16th? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ed. Can I get a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those minutes are accepted. We're at the end of the agenda. Any final questions or comments anybody would like to make? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ed. Second? Thanks. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's not a record, but.